Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you financed.
After DSP production vehicle category leaders Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford continued on their merry way. It was a performance that had the makings of becoming Toyota Desert Race legend, with the pair steadily increasing their lead over Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the battered RFS Toyota Hilux.
Youngsters Christian Duploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren were doing a sterling job in the second RFS Toyota Hilux, which looked in a lot better shape than its sister car. The factory Castrol Toyota Hilux pair of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were pushing hard to make up 40 minutes lost in mud holes. And Class E leaders Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus were plugging steadily along in the four-cylinder 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, which was finding it tough going in the thick sand.
The Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux of Gary Bertholdt and Dani Stassen had also lost wads of time in mud holes and, like the Visser Badenhorst entry, was looking a little battered. Bertholdt and Stassen were being chased by Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans, who were still running courtesy of bits and pieces from the Grobler Moore car when both teams hit the same rock early on in the race. Behind Tollefson and Evans, the second 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux of Class E championship leaders Dion Fente and Ian Palmer were also trying to make up time. They were looking for a third win this season, with reigning Class E champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux plugging along in the RFS Toyota Hilux.
Also on a charge after repairing the stub axle that broke not long after the start were Hugo and Jaap de Bruin in the Michelin XL Toyota Hilux, who'd steadily made up places. They'd moved ahead of the Transcore Ford Ranger of Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson, who were putting in a strong performance on their first desert race. Heinz Stumpfer and Hendrik van der Linde were running third in Class D in the Michelin XL Toyota Hilux, with Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara, another crew having to make up time after trials and tribulations. Kobus van Tonder and Riaan Gopa had lost ground, and they would fail to see out the day.
A phenomenal performance saw Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford in the overnight lead.
Look, we've got to keep our heads, keep it together, see where our position is and sort of drive accordingly, not do anything too crazy. It's a big race, this one. We really want to win it, so we must just keep our cool for tomorrow.
After a day of drama, Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford held a 33-minute lead over Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst. A fine performance too from Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus, who were a solid fifth in the first Class E entry.
As was the case in the production vehicle category, there was plenty of early drama among the special vehicles. The Century Racing Batter Prologue winners Colin Matthews and Alan Smith was an early casualty with a broken gearbox, and after starting 14th on the road, championship leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman were blasting their way through the field in the Motorrad Revo 1 4x4. The pair were simply bombing past stranded and slower cars.
Hutchinson and Bergman were chasing a fourth win on the trot and were quickly into the special vehicle lead. Last year's winners, Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, were going along at a slightly more sedate pace and were running strongly in the Porter, sponsored by Total in Botswana. With local sponsorship, Variawa and Rousseau were keen to pick up a good result, and it was a case of so far, so good early in the race.
There was also a steady start for 07 winners and reigning South African champions Cully and Quinton Silwalt in the Silwalt Racing Bat. Jimmy Zawas and Stefan Kutse were in touch with the leaders in the Mountain Dew Porter, with the father and son crew of Nick and Ryan Harper also looking solid in the early stages of the race in the Atlas Copco Bat in its turquoise colours.
The Century Racing CR2 of Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar got off to an encouraging start before the reliability bogey struck, and they retired before the first designated service point. The CR2 was being chased by Nassim Musaji and Mohammed Moulston in the Tyre Rack Jimco, with an interesting race situation starting to unfold. There was also a little tragic comedy when Class P frontrunners Don Thompson and James Watson arrived at a mud hole. Looking to take a run at the obstacle, they reversed into the Orange Tree Bat of Dutoy and Pienaar and put themselves out of action.
There were also mud hole woes for brothers-in-law Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing Bat. They got themselves bogged down and were to lose around 20 minutes.
The father and son team of Herman and Wichard Sulwald got off to a dodgy start, but were making up time in the Sulwald Racing Zarco, which was sounding healthy enough. Behind them, Class P champions Johan and Etienne Besaidnout were also battling with a misfire, and hot on the heels of the Adenco back were local hero Atang Makgagene, a previous desert race winner, and Zimbabwe co-driver Philip Arsenal.
First car into the designated service point was the Motorrad Revo 1 of Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman, with a good battle developing between the pair and Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the total porter. Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia were also in the mix, along with Nick and Ryan Harper, who were battling with a clutch problem.
Brothers David and Gary White were still in control of Class P after an uneventful morning in the Ruacon Bat, and was 7th overall, with Class B leaders Derek Dutoy and Ian Pienaar also in the top 10 at the compulsory halt.
The all-wheel drive Motorrad Revo 1 of race leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman, who built the car, had the advantage of the tighter sections of the route. The more powerful Mountain Dew porter of Jimmy Zaas and Stefan Kutsia and the total porter of Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau were more effective when the route opened out, and it added up to an intriguing swing and roundabout battle.
There was also a good battle developing between SA champions Cully and Quinton Sulwald and Comrades marathon veteran and former Gauteng motorcycle champion Nick Harper and son Ryan, who were worried about a clutch problem on the Atlas Copco Bat.
After their mud-all woes, Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson had made a good recovery in the Regent Racing Bat and were steadily moving back up the pecking order. The pair were followed by Nahim Musaji and Mohammed Molson in the Tyrak Jimco, who had quietly gone about their business with no attempt at heroics. The brothers White were still in control of Class P in the Ruacon Bat in what was their best showing of the season. And behind them, Cape Crew Derek Dutoy and Ian Pienaar had gearbox concerns, but led Class B by a country mile in the Orange Tree Bat. Tagging along behind the Orange Tree car were the Besaidnout brothers in a 6-sounding Adenco Bat, and they were headed for retirement.
Much to the delight of locals, Atang Makgagene and off-road debutant Philip Arsenal were still going strong in the healthy-sounding porter, and they'd steadily moved up the leaderboard. Battling along behind them were another father and son crew in Glenn and Rob Gibson from KwaZulu-Natal.
First at the overnight halt were Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman, with the Motorrad crew facing a couple of tactical dilemmas.
We're in the lead of the championship, and we've got to remind ourselves that I've never won the desert and I'm dying to win it. But at the same time, we want to win the championship. So it's so tricky out there. You know, there's so many trees and they're so close to the edge. And the moment you start pushing, it just, you know, you can take a wheel off so quickly. So I'll sit and think about that tonight.
With a minute separating the first three cars, the scene was set for an intriguing final day, with Cully and Quinton Sulwald also still firmly in the mix. The White brothers still led Class P, and Dutoy Pienaar led Class B.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you finance.